Hey guys, it's Rose with another Rosie Concepts video, and today we are talking about sidechains. On the album here, bass is pretty important to the overall tone of the album, but sometimes a good deep bass tone can be hard to come by. So, what do we do about that? A 50 Hertz sidechain. I was reminded of this by the bass on the song Work On It. It's a super handy tool whether you're using live drums or programmed drums. So, let's get into it. So you're probably wondering what a sidechain is. A sidechain is taking a gate, which is a type of dynamic processor, and using another one of your tracks to open that gate so that a secondary track can start playing. I know it's a little bit confusing when it's just said like that, but I'm gonna walk us through it. First, a gate is a type of processor that uses threshold, attack and release, range, and hold settings to let certain sounds in and keep specific ones out. You put it on a track when you want to control when it plays. First thing is the range. The range determines how loud or quiet a track will be when the gate is closed. If the range is as low as it can go, you won't hear anything. As the range gets higher, you'll hear a little bit more of the track. But this only applies to when the gate is closed. The threshold is how loud a track needs to be to get the gate to open and let the signal through. The attack is how fast the gate opens when it's triggered, and the release is how slowly the gate will close again. The hold is how long the gate stays open between your attack and release time. All of these work together to create a gate that is keeping out sounds you don't want and letting in sounds that you do. Gates have a lot of uses. Like a lot, but today we're using it for a specific effect called a sidechain. Sidechaining is when instead of using the track that the gate is on as the key, we sidechain another track to be used as the key. Sidechaining itself has a lot of uses in music, but today I'm going to show you a certain way to use it. 50 Hertz is a low tone, this low. And sometimes our kick drum isn't quite low enough, or beefy enough as some people say. And it's not like we all just have a ton of equipment or extra kick drums lying around to try, so we have to use what's called a 50 Hertz sidechain. It's putting a gate on a 50 Hertz tone that's always playing and setting the key input as the kick that you don't really like. This means that every time the kick hits, the tone will break through and add fullness to the sound. Then, when the kick drum is done, the gate closes, keeping the tone out, so that it only plays when the kick drum hits. I'll show you how it works with a gate and track of my own. Okay, so here are all of my drum tracks. Here's my 50 Hertz track, but right now we're just going to focus on the kick tracks up here. So to do the sidechain 50 Hertz effect that we've been talking about, first thing that I did was I created an aux track, titled it 50 Hertz so that I could remember what it was, and then I went right ahead and put a signal generator plug-in on it. Reset it to 50 Hertz because it started at 1000 Hertz or something like that. And when you first put it on there, it's just going to keep playing. It's just going to be a continuous tone. So then I immediately go and put this gate on there so that I don't have to sit there and listen to 50 Hertz playing in my headphones. I put my range all the way down to -80, which is just as low as it can go, because I don't want to hear any of the tone breaking through unless the kick is playing. That would just sound weird and unnatural for this song, and for the effect that we're going for. And then to get my key input going, I take my kick out track, and if you don't have a kick in and kick out, if you just have one kick track, then that'll work fine as well. And I did bus 1, just any bus that you want to do, to descend off of that, made sure that it was at nominal levels at 0. And then I go back over to my gate and I set the key input up here, where the little key is, to bus 1 so that the kick out send is sending straight into my gate as the key input. Then to make sure that it's working, I go over to the sidechain section over here and I press the little key button to basically say, yes, I want that to be the key in right now. So then once I have that, I can go over to all these controls and start configuring them for exactly what I want this to sound like. First thing that I would do is the threshold, because it's basically setting the level for when your gate's going to open, which is basically what everything else revolves around. So you want to set that first. Basically, I did this visually. I just looked at the gate and moved the threshold control around until I could see that the gate, so every time this orange thing goes up, that's when the gate opens. I just waited until that was only happening when the kick was hitting. So I would just listen and watch the gate and say, oh, it's only opening when the kick is hitting, and it's opening every time the kick is hitting, because you don't want it to sometimes hit when the kick is playing and then sometimes not. That's going to be weird to have like two different kick drum sounds playing at different times. So once I got that set, I was able to move over to my ratio, which is just going to set how hard or gentle the compression that's happening on the gate is. I wanted it to be somewhat gentle because you can kind of hear it if it's too hard. For some things, you might want it to be really fast and aggressive, but for this I wanted it to be softer so that it sounded more natural, because this song is somewhat of it's a natural sounding song. And that goes for my attack and release too. I wanted my attack to be really fast and my release to be really fast, but then it got to be too fast and I could hear the gate opening and closing every single time. And that sounds like a pop, which is not what a kick drum sounds like. So obviously that is not what we're going for at all. And so I had to slow them down so that they were still fast enough that the gate was opening and closing without leaving too much room or not doing it in time. But it was still sounding natural and not giving weird pops and clicks. The hold is very fast because a kick drum doesn't really hold its sound out at all. It kind of goes and then stops immediately. And especially in this song, there's a lot of really quick kick drum hits right next to each other. And so you don't really want the gate to hold open at all. Otherwise, there's just going to be one straight tone in that section. And then it just sounds weird. Obviously, a lot of these have to do with the individual song that you're doing. So if you were doing more of a hip hop sounding more electronic sounding song, you might want to play with the tones a lot more, because they're going to sound a lot more like what the rest of the song is. But with this more live sounding song that I've done here, it would just be out of place. So now I'll let you listen to what the drums sounded like without any of these plugins. So that was what, without any plugins or anything, just the unmixed natural sound of the kick drum that we recorded at an earlier date. And then when I put all of this in there, this is what that sounds like. So if you have if you're just listening on your phone or your computer, you won't be able to hear the difference because your computer speakers can't replicate 50 hertz. It's just way too low of a frequency. When I put the signal generator on and I didn't have my headphones in yet, I couldn't hear anything because my computer won't replicate that. But if you're wearing headphones, better headphones that are going to be able to replicate 50 hertz, which is a really low frequency, then you'll be able to hear a slight difference. And what it does is it just fills out the lower end of your kick. So sometimes a kick can sound kind of hollow once it's recorded. Maybe the placement was a bit off, or maybe it wasn't off and we just want a bit more low end in it. That's always a need in a kick drum, is more low end. And sometimes you don't want to just EQ the crap out of it and kill any other tone that you were getting out of it. So this slight 50 hertz bump that you get every time can really help even out your mix and even out your drum sound a lot. It rounds it out in the end. So that's how a sidechain works. I used 50 hertz, but you can use whatever frequency works best. Gates can be used to keep kick out of a snare mic, snare out of a kick mic, noise out of a guitar track, and so many other things. The more you look into them, the more you find out. So go and research gates and all of their creative uses. One of them is bound to come in handy. I'll see you guys next time with another Rosie Concepts video. See ya!